Aloha, welcome to Talk Story with Rep. Feki Pouha. I'm your host today, and thanks for joining us for more information on what's going on with the roadways, especially on the windward side of Oahu. My special guest today, we have Representative Jarrett Ke'okalole, representing the 48th District, and I'll have him introduce himself in just a little bit. And our other special guest today is Deputy Director Ed Sniffen from the Hawaii Department of Transportation. Welcome.
Aloha, Rep. Thanks for inviting me.
Aloha. Thanks for having me too.
Thank you for your time. I know you guys have a lot of things going on in your different responsibilities. So again, thank you. All right. So we're gonna start closer to Kaneohe and Kahaluu here on Oahu, and we'll have Rep. Ke'okalole introduce himself a little bit and share a little bit about what's going on there. And again, we're kind of focusing on the windward side of Oahu, and a lot of things going on there. So.
Yeah, which is nice. So thank you for having me on your show. I just got elected. I didn't know you were a show host.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Very happy to be
we
on.
only do this part-time, that's why.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, thank you. Mahalo to Ed Sniffen and the DOT for being here to discuss the road projects also. Like you said, I'm Jarrett Ke'okalole. I'm the state representative for the 48th District, which is Kaneohe, all the way into Kahaluu and Waiahole. You and I share Waiahole Valley. So I guess just to start off, maybe what I'll do is I'll start with I wanted to share some of the road updates for the viewers from our side in Kaneohe, and then we'll sort of move that way. So even though it's city jurisdiction, I have been working with the two council members from our district, Councilman Anderson and Council Chair Ernie Martin, on some updates for some of the road work that we're starting to get going in Kaneohe. I just talked to them this morning. So if you go to the city website, what you'll be able to if you poke around on the road repaving update section, what you'll see is that the road paving packages for Kaneohe and Kahaluu all the way into Waiahole are sort of up in the queue. And a number of those projects have been put out to bid, and contractors have been assigned. So we're hoping to see road repaving projects underway on the surface streets soon. Some of the projects, as a lot of you folks know, have been delayed, and so we're trying to work together to make sure those proceed expeditiously. But some of the areas that have been contracted out, in Ahui Manu, Waiahole, some parts of Kaneohe, we should see road repaving starting soon. So I know that's a welcome bit of news for some folks. Also, I did want to mention, since we have Ed here and he's with the DOT, I have had a lot of calls and letters and concerns about the status of repaving on Kamehameha Highway from the mall to Hygienic Store, that King Intermediate Heiakea corridor, which I know you probably receive a lot of calls because it is a state highway, but it's actually under the jurisdiction of the city. And so I just wanted to share, we do get a lot of calls, like I said. There is a Board of Water Supply, a water pipe project that's taking place. I know a lot of folks know that it's going on, and it has been running behind schedule. When we checked with the city, what we were informed is that the project should be completed soon, and the road repaving projects will start after that piping project is complete. I've told folks this before, what the city has said is they don't want to, and you can probably go into this in more detail, but generally the state and city don't like to pave, right before we have to, break ground and go into the ground and do other projects. So,
which is smart, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a reasonable way to do construction, but it is a burden on the folks driving that corridor. I drive that corridor almost every day,
yep.
And a lot of folks from your district, I know they take that as a shortcut.
I do too. Yep.
So, the roads are not in great shape now. A lot of that is because of the construction project, and then also because of wear and tear. It's right along the water, and we get a lot of rain. So once that Board of Water Supply project is complete, they will be putting the road repaving work out to bid, and so we should see some relief to the folks that travel that route shortly. And also the surface streets, UU, and some of the neighborhoods up there, they are on schedule to be paved by the city, hopefully really soon.
Nice.
So
Did,
those are
did you mention when that Board of Water Supply project's aiming to be done?
Well, it is running behind schedule.
Oh, okay.
And so when we talked to them, what they did say is that it is nearing completion.
Okay.
So it's not a great answer, but it's an answer. You know, obviously the sooner the better.
Yeah.
And so the last thing is, and something that I wanted to I'm glad to have Ed on to share with the viewers, is the Kahikili Corridor project. We were able to secure funding in this budget, a little over $5 million, to work on improvements to Kahikili Highway. As a lot of people know, there's a lot of traffic congestion along that corridor, especially in the dip from Haiku Road down through Temple Valley, all the way to Hygienic Store. And so I've had a lot of constituent concerns about the intersections along that route, about pedestrian walkways and access in the intersections, about bike lanes, and then just about the traffic congestion, not only during rush hour on the weekdays, but pretty much all day on the weekends.
Yeah.
Especially when you folks like to have festivals and things, or fairs
Definitely.
out on at Kualoa. So I'm glad to be on here because we want to let everyone know, and then I'll let Ed go, that I'll be going through the community this summer and spreading the word, but the Department of Transportation is coming out to do community meetings as a part of that, the construction process. And so we want to get the word out and let everyone know that this is your opportunity to provide input on, you know, what should happen and what's going to happen with the Kahikili corridor. And maybe I'll let Ed take over from there. Can you just sort of walk us through what the process is this summer, and how you folks plan to address some of the other issues around the roadway besides just the road construction itself?
I'd be happy to. Thank you very much, Rep. For the Kahikili Improvements Project, we started the re-discussions of this project about 3 years ago. And part of that process was to look at the 1990 EIS that was done for the entire project. Of course, only a portion of it was built at the time. When we look at the project, we looked at it because the community came out in force to let us know that the congestion was a big concern for them. So we wanted to help them address it. But we couldn't move forward on construction until we addressed all of our NEPA requirements, the requirements that Federal Highways gives us in order to use their funding.
So what does NEPA stand for?
NEPA is the National Environmental Protection Act. And that act requires us to look at any impacts that we have and make sure we assess them, we measure them, and we mitigate them as much as possible. So part of that process was to relook at the environmental impact statement that was done for 1990 for the entire project. And that entire project included the widening that was done before, the Castle Hills Road that was constructed as well. But it also included a flyover from onto Kahikili over Likelike. And it added in the widening from Haiku Road to down to Hygienic Store. So those were the two phases that we wanted to relook at, because the big concern was the congestion in the community. When we looked at it, we reassessed the EIS, and we decided that based on our review from OEQC, the Office of Environmental Quality Control, that we could move forward with the projects with an environmental assessment. So we have two phases to do. One environmental assessment for the widening from Haiku Road to Hygienic Store, and the other is for the flyover for going over Likelike, over the highway.
So the flyover part that you're talking about is when you're going down Likelike from the tunnel into Kaneohe. Now there's a loop that goes around as a part of that big intersection.
That's correct.
Okay.
So if that, if everything was built from the original EIS, then there would be no signalized intersection there. There would be a flyover going from that loop over to Kahikili Highway, and there'd be no, it would not upset the flow of traffic from the tunnel down into Kaneohe.
So if I'm understanding that right, when you're going down Likelike into Kaneohe and you take the right to go on Kahikili,
yes,
you know, all the way up the coast.
Yes.
As it was originally designed, that would be an overpass, so
That's
there would
correct.
be no stoplight. And
Absolutely.
then going into Kaneohe would just be that underpass as it exists now.
Absolutely.
And there's also a bypass road, which we secured money in the budget for, to finish an access road in the Castle Hills area, right?
That's correct.
Which is behind, sort of in the back of District Park.
Exactly.
Okay.
Hollow Road, yeah. So, no, absolutely right. And I thank you very much for getting the money secured for these projects. Much needed improvements for the community. When we look at the two phases, the widening portion and the flyover portion, we decided the widening portion would have a bigger impact to congestion than the flyover at this time. So we decided to prioritize that moving forward. And that was not just DOT's decision, that was from discussions with the community from 2011 throughout these times. Oh. We've had community meetings there. We've also sent out surveys to the homes in that area to ensure that we could get the broader perspectives from everybody. Everybody's busy, right? Sure. Not everybody can come to meetings during the daytime or the nighttime. So we wanted to make sure for those that couldn't come to the meetings, they had a voice as well. Based on those surveys and that information collected, this is how we're going to move forward. So that first phase, that widening portion, we're going to start up that EA first. We're getting our documentation together. We're making sure that we have everything in order to get out to the community in July. That's going to be the first time we reconnect with the community. Not the last, definitely. That's going to be the first meeting to start guiding this process of getting this improvement done. Now, the improvement, we keep calling it a widening, and it's because it's a congestion project. But this is the community's time to input their process, their opinions, their concerns, their comments to ensure that this project becomes the community's project, one that everybody can back. That's what the overall intent is. Once we do that, we want to make sure, and there's been a lot of concerns that were expressed from your office about the bike lanes, about the intersections, especially on pedestrian access. As we go forward on this project, we have to consider multimodality on the route. So if we're going to do this big improvement, we want to make sure that we connect with all the users of the roadway. So this is the time for everybody to come in to talk about, give their complete streets concerns to us, so we can accommodate these things as much as possible.
So multimodality means pedestrians and...
Pedestrians, okay. Bicyclists, transit users.
Okay. Dog walkers.
Exactly.
Dog walkers on Kahekili.
See a lot of hikers over there too, coming up the roadway.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So just to recap what you're saying, rather than providing a flyover type of opportunity for those coming down the Like going on to Kahekili, it's more important to widen Kahekili to provide relief for the congestion that's there. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely, and this came from the meetings itself, from the community. Now the portion that for the flyover is not being forgotten. That's going to go next. So once this widening portion is done, once we start kick off the environmental clearances and design can move forward, we'll pull back and take care of the environmental clearances for the overall flyover as well.
Wow.
And part of the discussion is always justification of the project. Sure. So we need to consider the different alternatives throughout. Widen, no widen, the contraflow lane issue that was discussed in the past. All those things will be considered as part of that widening portion, or adding capacity to that corridor. For the flyover, it's going to be a flyover or upgrade the intersection or no build. So there's different alternatives that we consider throughout.
Nice.
Okay, and so I know we're starting community meetings in July. Can you sort of take us through your requirements as a part of the EA? What is the EA process and what does it look like?
So the EA process, it has to involve community members. So we have to pull in the community to ensure that we have a broad spectrum of ideas from the people who live in that community into the project. We also got to make sure that we take care of all environmental concerns. So as part of, just for some of the things that we have to discuss, we have to discuss take care of the Section 7 requirements, which is biologicals, any endangered species in the areas, any wetlands in the areas. We have to go through the 4.1 process, that's our clean water, any water that's affected in that area. We always have to go through our 106 processes, which is our archaeological, cultural processes to ensure that we don't have any impacts or mitigate impacts to any historic, archaeological, or cultural processes in the area as well. So we have to clear all of these different areas, and in the end, we have to satisfy Federal Highways and ACHP, the Council of Historic Preservation in Washington, that we've taken all the necessary steps to either avoid or minimize any impacts to any of these precious resources that we have. That's the process itself. And while we go through it, these processes guide the general decision making as we go forward. If there's areas that are significant impacts, of course, we'd probably not choose that alternative, whether they be to historic resources or residences in the area. If we had, say we wanted to widen nine lanes, but we had to take several homes, that's a huge impact to residences that needs to be considered.
We're not,
of course,
not trying to.
Of course. No.
Okay. You're on TV.
Yes,
Yeah.
but that's the general processes that we look at as we go forward.
Okay. And so, hopefully Representative Pouha is going to have my information on maybe the screen below. You can always contact my office for more information, but can they go to the DOT website to follow the, at any different point of the process, be it historic preservation or, the environmental impacts to the area, particularly or even the Hei wetland.
Absolutely.
Where can residents go to get more information on where we're at in the process and what steps DOT is taking along the way?
Great question. The first step in this process is always going to be to reconnect with the area legislators. So we can talk story about how best to communicate with the community. Okay. Sometimes we create a separate website specifically for that project. So anyone who has any questions about it can go directly there and be caught up really quickly on what's been presented and what's been decided. So that's one thing. That's one way we usually communicate with the community. Another way, they can call us directly. Our public affairs office takes their calls. There's an answering machine that answers overnight. So as soon as the next morning comes up, they send us any information requests so we can respond accordingly. Our DOT office, our public affairs office, is at 587-2160. Community can call there. Or they can send emails to that office at dotpao@hawaii.gov. So either way, however we get the information, or if we get it from your offices, we can answer that way. But in general, we'll talk story about how best to connect with the community, and we'll move from there.
Okay, great.
Awesome. So before we close, just again grateful for all your time. But just speaking generally, we're talking here about traffic hot spots for the windward side of Oahu. What are some of the other things that you'd like to share about what the Department of Transportation is trying to do? I know you folks have been doing a lot with social media as well. Just if you could just put a plug out there for DOT.
I really appreciate that. One of the big things, and you brought up the intersections, we work very closely with the city to ensure that we try to maximize or optimize the timing on the intersections to the extent possible. One of the big concerns that came from the community is the protected left at Huiva. I don't know how many calls I got about that. That came from a policy in the past that said, any new intersections that come up, we shall protect the lefts. There's no permissives. But that's a policy that we're relooking at this time. And again, that's in concert between the state and the city to try and relook at things and how we can do them better. Information, that's the biggest thing we can do. We'd love to take care of all the congestion in the world, but we just don't have enough land, we don't have enough resources. So we're trying to at least give as much information as possible to the motoring public so they can make their decisions earlier, or if they're stuck, they can make them at the time they get stuck in congestion. One of the big pushes we've been making is towards our ITS, our Intelligent Transportation System. Getting more cameras out there, getting more eyes on the ground, and getting more information out to the public sooner. Our Go Akamai website, prior to the whole zipper lane fiasco that came up, was about 5,000 to 10,000 hits a day. At that time, we hit 60,000. Oh, wow. And it's been progressing up recently. So it's a good thing that the information people are coming in to see the information we have there. Right now, we're listing all of the projects that the state is doing that impacts motorists out there. Mm-hmm. We also have the HART projects that are there as well, the real projects. The intent, though, of the Go Akamai system was never to be a state system. Oh, wow. It's a statewide system. Mm-hmm. So we're starting it on Oahu, and we're working very closely with the city and county DTS to get the city projects on the Go Akamai system as well. Mm-hmm. So hopefully very soon, when we get the database populated and get everything set up, any motorist can go on and take a look at the website itself to see all the city and county and state projects that are affecting their commute. Nice. We're also trying to improve the system so people don't have to look at the map and see everything. Mm-hmm. If they wanted to get alerts just based on their travels, we're putting in an app in the system itself that you can, it's kind of a My Travel page. If you put in there where you traveled usually, what routes you take, at what times during the day, an hour before your route, it'll shoot you some alerts and say, on your travel today, these are going to be the different impacts. Wow. So be aware of these. So we're trying to improve the information as much as possible, and this comes from the discussions with the community, who say, you know, when I use Waze does this well, or when I look on Google Traffic, this works really well. So we're trying to improve things, so make it a lot easier for the community itself.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, last but not least, we want to share our pothole hotline, and I think we have those numbers up ready to share. I think the city hotline is 808-768-7777. And our state hotline number for potholes is 808-536-7852. How important are those pothole lines?
These are absolutely important. And I would like to stress to the community that you don't have to remember two of them.
Okay.
Just remember one.
Just remember one.
Because overall, it doesn't matter if it's a city or state road. If somebody calls in with a concern and it's a city jurisdiction, we'll send it over to the city.
Wow.
So it'll be seamless. And we want to make it as painless as possible. It's very important for us and the city to get this kind of information because we have people who live all over the place within DOT. And we travel all over, but we don't travel everywhere.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that we get as much information as possible to plan our efforts as we go forward. For instance, if we see an area that have a lot of potholes or a lot of incidents of potholes, we can start pushing out projects into that area sooner rather than later. If we don't have that kind of information, we'll program based on other information. So this is very, very important.
That's awesome. So which number is the best number to remember then?
Well, for me, I think the state number, of course, would be the best. If you call us and it's a city jurisdiction, we'll be happy to send it over to the city and they'll respond accordingly.
We love the city. We love the city.
Absolutely. Well, right? They're great friends.
Definitely. Definitely. Well, awesome. Well, anything else before we wrap up here? All right, that says it all. So thank you so much again for coming again, Deputy Director Ed Sniffen from the Hawaii Department of Transportation and Representative Jarrett Kehokalole. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Look for more of our episodes. We'll be sitting down with Deputy Director Ed Sniffen, going into more detail about the 47th District here in the state of Hawaii and some of the projects going on there. Have a great time and thanks for tuning in today. Aloha.